Hello and welcome to A Deeper Dive with me, Dara Cam. Today I am here joined by my other mook. You got two mooks in the terracotta room. City and State, Florida editor-in-chief Jim Rosica. Listen to how that just rolled off my tongue. I had no problem with that, whatever.
This time.
And this only taken me half a year. Welcome to A Deeper Dive, Jim. We got a lot to talk about.
We do, and obviously first up on the agenda here is I have to tender an apology to you, or maybe I have to eat some crow, I guess, on a previous edition of Deeper Dive, speaking with all the Deeper Dive divas. Bearing in mind yesterday's news, I will admit I made a prediction that did not come true, yes. And I promised Dara that I would give her a cake if I was wrong. So I owe Dara a cake because I predicted a very patriotic July 4th announcement date by Ron DeSantis for his presidential launch. And I was wrong, of course, as we all know. It happened yesterday on Twitter. Or did it, Dara?
Well, it happened on Wednesday, so this episode will be coming out a few days later. So we have to try to remind ourselves to speak in vague terms when we talk.
It happened on May 24.
That's right. It did happen on May 24th,
precise.
And it also didn't happen on Memorial Day, which was another kind of speculative speculation. And I'll tell you my personal experience. You know, his announcement, which was very much, people have been writing about it and predicting it for months. It's been leaked out, you know, here, there, and everywhere. He's been traveling to Iowa, New Hampshire, the first primary and caucus states for the Republicans. So it's been no secret. So this launch, this official launch, hours after he filed his federal campaign paperwork, was a Twitter Spaces event with Twitter owner Elon Musk. And as everyone now knows, it was a complete and utter meltdown, which I was predicting. We were internally emailing saying, oh, you know, Twitter's got the servers.
We did
for
say
this.
that, yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I have never had good luck with Twitter live stuff in the past for just, you know, less than 1,000 people trying to follow those events. My app crashed 5 times on my phone while I was
trying. As mine did.
Yeah, and then I finally, when I was able to, I like momentarily could hear the guy David Sack say something about you broke the internet, and then the sound went off on my app, and so I just kind of threw my hands up and followed along elsewhere. So, you know, took a little bit of the not even a little bit. I think, you know, strategically, this was supposed to be his big coming out party. And instead of talking about the substance of...
We can't say coming out in Florida.
Oh, no, I know, you're right. I'm sorry. We have to censor that.
We have to... Somebody censor that in post-production.
Yes.
It was just his big campaign launch.
Debut. Yeah, it was his big debut. Instead, people spent the first hour or more talking about I'm trying to think of some of the words. It was a meltdown. It was disastrous, and someone else.
Disaster, DESASTER,
that was trending
on Twitter.
Disastrous,
right. Disastrous Ron,
right,
et cetera. The technical glitches that marked the first 20 minutes or so of the broadcast, I'll call it for lack of a better word, Twitter space, then kind of took over, as you just said, the conversation about the campaign launch for about an hour or more later. And of course, city and state readers will know by now that we had a piece on our website that talked about all of the Twitterati reacting both for and against the Twitter Space malfunction. And so, then the question is, okay, that'll drive the conversation for about a day or so. And then one of the interesting things I noticed is that even for all of the talk about how the DeSantis campaign, Team DeSantis, is going to open up to more of the media, for instance, I'm now seeing, as we sit here taping this a day later, that all of his interview hits are once again with conservative commentators, broadcasters. I believe he was on Fox News after Twitter. He was on Mark Levin. He's going to be on Eric Erickson as we sit here taping this. So I don't see him sitting with anybody on MSNBC.
Well, I did see that Politico did have did get an interview. Jonathan Martin got an interview.
J Mart.
You call him J Mart. I know him. Yeah. So Jonathan Martin did get an interview in the governor's mansion with the governor a couple weeks ago. And that was kind of the most, I'm using air quotes, mainstream, I think, media sit down. He derided mainstream media last night in his conversation. What did you call it in that broadcast?
In the broadcast.
Yeah.
In the Twitter space.
In the Twitter space.
And I know people will automatically say, "Oh, he's not talking to more of you guys. Cry some more." But I'm just noting. The campaign folks said, yeah.
Yeah, Christina Pushaw tweeted something yesterday. Before we get to, I'm still getting updates about Live with Ron DeSantis. Okay, thanks.
You'll be getting a lot of those.
Yeah. She tweeted something, but before I go to her tweet, it's the fact that he did it on Twitter seemed a little bit ironic to me, because conservatives oftentimes, and actually polls on both sides of the aisle will make the argument that most real people don't follow Twitter, aren't on Twitter. I will tell you that my neighbors my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 neighbors, none of them are on Twitter. So, and they are regular folks in a, nice Tallahassee neighborhood. So I think that decision was a little perplexing to me. What are your thoughts?
I would agree with you that most people aren't on Twitter. I think what happens is people like us who are professional media folks who live in what Gary Fineout calls the Tallahassee bubble, just automatically think, oh yeah, Twitter, without realizing that, oh yeah, Twitter, most people just don't use it. I would venture to say more people use Facebook than they do Twitter, but Twitter has become this popular space, pardon the use of that word again, for political folks to go, campaign people, fundraisers, politicians themselves, the media that covers them. It becomes kind of like the internal intercom for us. And I think we forget that, a lot of this is self-echoing, and the normal folks aren't listening as much on Twitter as maybe we think they do.
I think so, and I think what has happened is that Twitter has become a medium, it like the middleman for us as reporters to get information from elected officials and government agencies.
Absolutely. We use it to do our job.
We used to get press releases.
Correct.
Saying this, that, or the other. And now when the governor signs a bill, they still do send out press releases. But most of the time when the governor does something, we find out about it on Twitter before we find out about it in our email inboxes. And that's really a shift. So it's a way of communicating with the media. So if you think about it in a way, this Twitter disaster was a way of talking to us in the media without directly talking to us. I don't know. I just wonder if he wouldn't have been better off doing a live event that every major news outlet would have covered live,
like a town hall with
like a
Fox,
town
perhaps.
hall. Yeah,
You would think.
yeah.
I will say that Twitter is now the 21st century equivalent of the old mailboxes at the old Florida Press Center.
That's true.
In downtown Tallahassee, where people used to send college kids with printouts of press releases, and they would stand there and put them in each, the Miami Herald box, the then St. Pete Times box,
Palm Beach Post
box, the Gannett, Florida box.
Yeah.
That's those days are gone, obviously, and so Twitter has now become the press mailroom for the media in general.
Yeah, it's interesting. Although people are leaving Twitter because of Elon Musk's some of the decisions that he's making. So I don't know. It's become a politically charged space too. Right-leaning, that's why Elon Musk and Ron DeSantis are very much aligned ideologically in terms of delivering information, content delivery, and censorship, and the like. So let's moving on to.
So then the question becomes, okay, what's next?
Right.
In other words. So now we've got this super PAC, never back down. But we also have, legacy team DeSantis, as it were, which, as some of us who work in the building, literally watched as the moving van pulled up to the Republican Party of Florida the Republican Party of Florida headquarters, which, as we sit in the terracotta room, I can lean to my right and see RPOF headquarters through the window. I can actually just
turn around. I don't even need to.
I have to lean over to the right to see it. But
that's because I'm the diva.
Well, there we go. We watched a moving van there at least 2 days in a row, moving Team DeSantis out of RPOF HQ in downtown Tallahassee to their new headquarters, which we now know, or at least I now know. Thanks to one of the USA Today Florida reporters, is in some kind of office park up North Monroe and off of North Monroe. And she told the funny anecdote of figuring out where they were and knocking on the door, I guess, to ask for a tour. And she said she was met by a guy in a black polo who asked her who she was. And she said she was a member of the media, and he shut the door in her face.
Well, there you have it.
And there you have it.
So some things never change.
Some things never change. So then, so beyond that, so the question is, we kind of knew who the power players were in the old structure, and then the question was who were going to be the power players in the new structure. Who is going to be the Karl Rove, who's going to be the Steve Bannon of the DeSantis presidential campaign? Who's going to be, as they said about Karl Rove, who's going to be DeSantis's brain?
Right, and so who is that going to be?
I'm going to assume it is going to be Janera Peck, who retains the title of campaign manager, but we have all of these other high-powered consultants who are now under the Never Back Down tent, including Jeff Rowe, who, as of this morning, was still around. And we had it in our newsletter. We linked to it in an article by National Journal that asserted that the campaign was going to be run out of and by Never Back Down.
That's what it seems like so far, because Never Back Down was the one that was advertising this. I think it was like right after he filed his paperwork to qualify. I got a a video in my email, still in the email inbox, from Never Back Down, the campaign video, the campaign announcement video. Did you not get that?
I may have.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm just saying it came from there. It didn't come from Team DeSantis. So that was right out of the gate. They are asserting their kind of territory over the campaign. So,
although, as a counterpoint to that, there was an email last night or this morning from Team DeSantis that gave a rundown about all of the states that DeSantis was going to visit, but that I did not get at first.
I didn't get it either.
So I had to go back and figure out how to get it, which I did.
Okay, well, you'll have to tell me after we're done, because I got other stuff from Team DeSantis, but I did not get that.
Exactly. So it's kind of like who's sending what to whom, who's on what list. And it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, still very early, but the whole question about who's in charge of what, who does what, who's in charge, period, is clearly still to kind of shake out, at least to us, because we're not inside the room.
Yeah, we're not even. I mean, like, for me personally, I don't even know where the room is.
We don't even know where the room is. We don't even know where the building is. Except we do now, thanks to the reporter from USA Today. Thank you very much, Anna.
So, it brings. We've talked on this podcast for the past couple of weeks about a couple of several high-profile pieces of legislation that the governor has boasted about last night, although I'm not sure where because like I said, I couldn't listen to it all. The 6-week abortion ban, was that something? I think I read that he hedged about whether that he would support that nationally if elected president, or did I misunderstand that?
You may have a better memory than I do, and I was kind of listening to it in and out, obviously doing the 6 other things I normally do to get the website in shape.
He's a hard worker. In case you don't get that.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes at City and State,
He's
folks.
very busy. He's a hamster on a wheel over here. The higher education K-12 revamping of New College, Chris Rufo also participated.
Chris Rufo was on the Twitter space and finally got like 6 words in at the very end.
Yeah.
He was introduced maybe about halfway in between, and I kept like, oh, when's Chris Rufo going to come on? And I think literally in the last 5 minutes, we finally heard from Chris Rufo.
But the point is that he was included as part of this event.
The campaign launch. He was at and spoke at the equivalent of the campaign launch. Right,
which shows you that the governor has this agenda for higher education to make it more classical, more conservative. We've talked about what they've done with New College, what he's done with New College, stripping the old board of the state's liberal arts college in Sarasota, stripping the old board, putting his, I think 6 now of the 7 members of that board don't live in Florida, which is kind of interesting to me. But he supported the legislation that imposed or will authorize universal vouchers for the state's public education system. People say that it's a dismantling. Critics say that hate to use that term. Democrats and others say that it's the dismantling of Florida's public education system from PK to higher ed. So that is something that is clearly, he is going to campaign on these achievements, the anti-LGBTQ, the anti-trans treatment for minors, paring back on access to treatment for transgender folks, for adults. That's also something that he's campaigning on. And he said that, in Florida, what he has said that I find very interesting, that seems to me to be a shift away from previous executives, is that he won his re-election by 20 plus percentage points, and it was an overwhelming win. And he calls that a mandate from the voters to pursue the agenda that he campaigned on.
To be accurate, I think it was like 19 points something.
I'm sorry, so almost 20%.
Almost 20.
Almost 20 percentage points, which in Florida by Florida standards is a landslide. So that is a mandate, and he has said that he is going to govern according to that mandate, and he doesn't feel it incumbent to govern for all of the citizens of the state.
Well, and that's why when he spoke last night, and admission, not an original observation. A lot of people noted this on Twitter and elsewhere, but the scripted part, for lack of a better term, that he read at the beginning of his announcement, as included, many of the guests and many of the conversation that happened afterwards throughout the Twitter space, came off as a DeSantis greatest hits. Mm-hmm. We didn't mention one of the guests was Jay Bhattacharya, the Stanford professor who has been most vocal about the vaccine and the way that the country has handled COVID and against mask mandates and lockdowns, et cetera, all of which DeSantis completely agrees with. So, even in the campaign launch, we're still talking about COVID. And I think that's, because that was his first, what is the word I'm looking for? That was his first big stand.
Yeah. I think it really kind of, I think, placed him in the national dialogue.
Well put.
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back with City and State, Florida Editor-in-Chief Jim Rosica.
From the team that brought you Deeper Dive with Dara comes a brand new e-newsletter on the Florida man who may be president. Governor Ron DeSantis is his own conservative brand. The DeSantis Files is your one-stop shop for the best in reporting, analysis, and opinion on the man's supporters call America's governor. Delivered straight to your inbox twice a week. Learn more by emailing editor@cityandstatefl.com. That's cityandstatefl.com. Here at Deeper Dive, we want to hear from you, the listeners. We invite you to send your questions, comments, and feedback to our mailbag. You can reach us at deeperdive@cityandstatefl.com. That's deeperdive@cityandstatefl.com. Get your 2 cents in by sending us an email.
Welcome back to a Deeper Dive with Dara. And I think that is as a populist, I think that is a very smart decision to continue hammering on, freedom Florida, free from masks, free from vaccinations, because those shutdowns resonated. They affected everybody, and especially small business owners, people who might be more center right, more moderate Republicans, if there is such a thing anymore. I guess in real life there is, maybe there isn't in
the Rockefeller
in
Republicans,
right? But more working class than that. That really, really fired people up. He won a lot of support. And I think a part of those numbers, that 19 plus percentage point victory in November, was rooted in dissatisfaction over shutdowns and the handling of COVID.
Well, and let's not forget school shutdowns.
Yeah.
As I can speak with painful firsthand experience. I don't want to get too personal, but as the parent of a rising fourth grader who went to experienced a school shutdown in the middle of his kindergarten year, and didn't go back to school until after the scheduled start of his first grade year, we and other parents are still dealing with the lingering effects of that in terms of developmental delays, problems reading, problems grasping concepts, slowness in processing. And I personally believe this is due in part to that forced pause in his education and his socialization.
The socialization aspect of it, I don't think can be I don't think you can undervalue the importance of the lack of that.
And it's one thing when it happens if you're a 7th grader or an 11th grader, and it's another thing if you're a kindergartner or a first grader.
Right.
It ain't easy to bounce back from, and I can tell you that from firsthand experience. We're still dealing with it.
And I'm sure a lot of parents are. So
and we're not alone, exactly.
Right. So I do think that it, while for me personally, talking about COVID seems like, ancient history, but for parents like you, and for people whose businesses were decimated and had to lay off people and let employees go and, rack up debt or whatever, spend down their savings, that is, it resonates. I don't think you can overstate how much impact that had on everyday Floridians. But the idea that the governor is running as a candidate who is saying now, that he would govern as president for the people who agree with him ideologically, that seems to me to be contrary to what presidents and executives have said in the past, that they represent all Americans, they represent all Floridians, they represent, the entire country. What say you about how that might play out on, in voters' minds?
Well, I think he's, there's a strong streak of majoritarianism in there. There's a strong streak of right-mindedness, no pun intended. And, there's the old joke about, strangers or friends you haven't met yet, folks who don't think like you, haven't given it a shot yet. So I think that this is, he is, I think he will, his presidential campaign will in large part be evangelistic. He is going to, preach the gospel of Ron. And I think he is going to, I think he is counting on the fact that when people hear the truth, as he puts it, they're going to come around to him and they're going to see him as the guy that deserves their vote.
It's interesting that you say evangelistic, because I think the day before, it was either 1 or 2 days before his announcement, he did a sit down with Franklin Graham,
the son of
Billy
Graham.
Graham.
Okay.
Yeah. And, so there is a lot of concern among progressives and left-leaning people about this shift towards a Christian-based, and the governor says often, the country is founded on God-given rights. The country is founded on principles laid out in the Bible. So, that is very disturbing to some civil libertarians.
Well, and which you've also, you're opening the door to another thing that I've been thinking about, which is, now comes the time where, if we haven't known him before, oh my gosh, are we going to get to know Ron DeSantis in terms of, there was a, even though the DeSantis folks didn't think so at the time, there was a very well done New Yorker profile on him early on.
Good piece.
That was very good. That was not at all as negative as they thought it was.
Yeah.
And there have been other profiles after that. That's the one that sticks out to me. But once the questions that we're gonna start asking are, for instance, I don't know, where does Ron DeSantis go to church? Is Ron DeSantis a Catholic? I don't know. Maybe others are listening to this and go, oh, of course he's a so-and-so, and I see him at so-and-so every Sunday.
No, you're right.
I don't.
But we used to know where the other governors did go to
we
church.
We did. Jeb Bush, as you will remember, went to Blessed Sacrament here in Tallahassee, not far from where we are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And we used to see them out at dinner.
There you go.
And we used to see Charlie Crist at Publix. And I don't see the governor, and I don't hear stories of the governor. They do have 3 young children.
They do. I do remember hearing a story early on about when the DeSantises took the kids to one of the indoor trampoline places in town.
I believe they have one inside. I think they have a bouncy room inside the governor's
in the
mansion.
Yeah. That would not.
That is
not
something
surprise
that
me.
I've heard. So there's a little tidbit for you divas.
Okay.
I can't. It's not official. Is a rumor. Yeah, we'll get to know the governor. He's going to be traveling around. Of course, people are.
There will be the endless stories about, journalists who find the people that went to elementary school with him.
They'll start digging in.
They're going to talk to his law school study group, I'll bet you. The other profile that came to mind now is the one in the New York Times about his heretofore not really known time as a teacher at a private school, and there was some, controversy about, was he hanging out with the kids?
Right.
And there was at least one party that he made a guest appearance at. There were some pictures, and my point is, expect more of that.
Yeah, there was also, was that the same story where they said that he dated, like he would, if he took a date to a Thai restaurant and he pronounced it Thai, and if they corrected him, then he would leave.
I don't know if that was that story, but I do remember that anecdote.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever see Thai.
I think it's totally untrue, Dara.
I'm sure it's totally untrue.
Untrue, just as it's untrue that he ate pudding with his
3
fingers, Dara.
Okay, I'm sure.
All of these besmirchments.
Yes.
Terrible.
We're just reporting rumors now. That's not. Well, here, what's not a rumor is that Donald Trump's campaign went ballistic last night during the Twitter
space. Call it a space.
Broadcast.
Yeah, you can call it broadcast.
The Twitter space. And they were repeatedly sending out, I mean, my inbox was full of, and Twitter also, of responses from President Trump and his allies, who have been hammering, DeSantis repeatedly over the past few months in the run-up to the announce of the run. I wonder, one of the things DeSantis faces, he has to walk a tightrope. He cannot criticize Trump overtly because he's so popular with the base, and the base is who votes in Republican primaries. The types of voters who are going to vote for Ron DeSantis are similar to, ideologically aligned with voters who will support Donald Trump. So how do you run a campaign against someone who has still so much popularity? There's a feeling among Trump supporters that he deserves a second term, that it's not time, it's not Ron's time.
His second term was stolen from him.
That's right. His second term was stolen from him. The governor, by the way, recently was asked about whether Donald Trump lost the election, whether Biden won fairly. or does he support the lies that Donald Trump is continuing to espouse, saying that the election was stolen, that there was fraud? And DeSantis sidestepped the question and didn't answer it.
Well, surprise, surprise.
Yeah. So anyway, he has this line of not alienating, not directly, hitting Trump. He's quick-tempered, and he has, as one DeSantis supporter told me recently, I was starting to say he's thin-skinned, and this guy told me he's got a glass jaw. So how
DeSantis does?
Yes. He's very thin-skinned. So and he's quick. He has a quick temper. So how do you think that will fare, on the campaign trail, months and months of this, traveling all around the country, as Donald Trump repeatedly throws darts at him?
I think that's going to be an answer that we're just going to have to wait and see on.
Yeah.
Just as it is, the other thing that you said a little bit ago that made me think of, the penchant of the Donald to come up with nicknames, and we had DeSanctimonious, then we had DeSanctus that kind of didn't go anywhere. Then Meatball Ron, which didn't go anywhere, and there was a little bit of supposition that, is that an anti-Italian American dig? And now we're at Rob.
Rob, I know.
I don't get Rob.
I was going to ask you about that.
What's Rob? I don't
guess
get
it's
it.
Like an insult because he's not going to use your proper name.
Because he's just not going to use your actual name.
He's not even going to use your name. You're that much of a, nothing burger.
It's like the sitcom joke of the one person who doesn't know the other person's name. So you know what it's like? It's like Bewitched. It's like, and Dara and Dora keeps calling her son-in-law Durwood, and he has to say it's Darren. That's what it is. That's got to be it.
That is hilarious. I think you're probably right.
That's got to be it.
I think you're probably right.
all those after-school times spent watching reruns of '60s shows on UHF television. It's just paid off. I was able to pull that analogy together.
That's funny.
That's great.
No, you're right. So Rob DeSantis. We'll be seeing a lot on Twitter about what he's doing. He's got a very agile, nimble social media team that got their chops working for him in the governor's office. They've moved over to the campaign or to... I'm not sure if they're working for the campaign or if they're working for Never Back Down, but they're working for whoever it is that's going to trying to propel him into the White House.
Whatever happened to Ready for Ron?
Ready for Ron? Oh, I do remember that pack? I do remember that.
All these little super PACs that popped up. It's like, yay, run, and it's like.
But I think really the thing that we're going to be watching, right, is going to be the Don v. Ron. It's going to be Rock'em Sock'em Robots. At least one Rock'em Sock'em Robot.
It's going to be Rock'em Sock'em. Do you have a Rock'em Sock'em Robot sound effect on your little soundboard there?
I wish I did.
Okay.
I wish I did.
I know all those little red buttons are your friends. Yeah, see, that's
not it.
No, you need you need the Rock'em Sock'em Robot sound effect now.
What is that? I can get Ryan to make
it sounds something like chick, 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 chick when the head goes up.
All right, we'll have to get Ryan to do that.
I think I may actually have a Rock'em Sock'em Robots at my house, which would not be surprising since I have a soon-to-be 7 and 9-year-old.
I don't have one of those, and when I moved several years ago, I lost my Insultinator, which was my favorite.
I remember that. If you recall...
You're a totally gross, boring nerd.
You dropped that on the floor, and I almost stepped on it. That's what I remember about the Insultinator. I was like, oh, God. Like, it's okay. You almost stepped on it. I'm like, oh, thank God.
You're a totally gross, boring nerd. Voiced by Wallace Shawn.
There you go.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to talk about today before we say goodbye?
I think we've expended our allotted time, and we'll just say that again, if you are already fed up with DeSantis coverage, you ain't seen nothing yet. If too much is never enough, just wait. You're going to be drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, it's a year.
It's going to be a year.
Strap in.
It's going to be a year.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim Rosica. Really nice to be in the one thing before we close out, I want to mention. Somebody asked me about it the other day, so I'd like to clarify that all of the times that I have been broadcasting from the podcast from the Lafayette Park Rehab Center, which is my house, that was rehab for my fractured tibia, folks. So that's the kind of rehab I was talking about. Just lest there be any confusion, I know
physical rehabilitation.
Everybody knows this already. I have been in recovery for a very, very long time. So that's the only kind of rehab that's going on. And it is still ongoing. I am walking and I'm back in here today, but I have a long road to hoe. So that's... Maybe we
Thank God we cleared that up.
I feel much better. Thank you so
all right.
much,
Thank
Jim
you.
Rosica, for joining us again. We'll be back together in a couple weeks to give you another update from Ron DeSantis on the campaign trail.
And I'll give you the usual plugs, which is always visit our website, City and State Florida, at www.city and spell out A-N-D, statefl.com. And of course, if you are not signed up for our morning newsletter, First Read, that really tells you everything you need to know in terms of glossing over all of the coverage. If you're interested in Florida politics and policy, you can go to the website and click on the newsletters tab and sign up for free.
A Deeper Dive with Dara is a podcast by City and State Florida, hosted by Dara Cam, produced by Ryan Daly, and music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC, and performed by Ryan Daly and Danny Reyes.